Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jordan and thank you so much for clicking on one of my bookish videos. Today I'm super excited because I'm going to be talking about some of my romance recommendations for this month of February, aka Love Month. February is one of the best months for romance new releases, so although I love reading romance year round, I think this is such a great month for finding new authors and new books. So stay tuned if you want to see some romance recommendations and romance books that I love. Starting off strong, we have to start with Miss Emily Henry. This is Funny Story, which was her release last year in 2024. Funny Story, I think, may now be my favorite Emily Henry book, beating out Beach Read. Funny Story is a fake dating type book. It is about Daphne and Miles, who are both broken up with by their fiancés, I believe, after their fiancés decide that they're actually in love with each other. And so the two of them decide to move in together because they have nowhere else to go and essentially start fake dating to make their exes jealous. It is just so incredible. The writing in this, I think, is her best work. I love Daphne's character. She is a librarian who is trying to figure out just her career and what she wants in life, and Miles is incredible. So I highly recommend checking this one out. Next up is the Magnolia Parks series, which I'm not sure if I would classify fully as a typical romance book. I think it leans more contemporary romance with a little bit of fiction. However, I would be failing myself if I made a romance recommendations book without this, because this has my favorite love story of all time between BJ and Magnolia. This is an interconnected series where half of the books focus on BJ and Magnolia's love story and their friends, and then half of the series focuses on Daisy and Julian, who are siblings, and their romantic relationships. BJ and Magnolia are my favorite love story couple of all time. As you can see, I'm currently wearing my House Weather Park sweatshirt. This is a series of drama. It's not for everyone. It has a lot of really emotional topics. The couples in it are on and off again, but it is one of the most beautifully written series and love stories of all time, and I will always recommend it. Next up, we have the Ex Vows by Jessica Joyce. This is a second chance romance, which I think is my favorite trope aside from enemies to lovers, and this was such a beautiful story. It is her most recent release, and it follows Georgia and Eli as they kind of reconnect for their best friend's wedding after breaking up 5 years ago, and you spend the entire story seeing how the two of them have grown, them working through why they broke up in the past, and it is just, I think it may be one of my favorite second chance romance books. It is so beautiful, so emotional, and I just loved it. Next is another classic romance author, and that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is a type of fake dating book, I would say. It's about Justin and Emma, who have what they believe to be a curse where they date other people, and then as soon as those other people break up with them, their exes find the love of their life. So they meet each other and they decide the two of them should date, because when they break up, then they will both find their soulmates. As they begin dating, they start catching feelings for each other and then realize that it may not be the right time for either of them to be in a serious relationship. This, personally, I think is her best romance book. Emma's character was so complex and emotional. She had a lot of trauma to work through, and I think Abby wrote her character really authentically. The relationship was just so beautiful in the way that they both supported each other through really difficult times. Next, in another beloved romance author recommendation, we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is her most recent release that just came out in February, and it is her first sports romance book. It is about a swim swimmer and a diver in college who essentially start a bit of a sexual relationship but not actually dating. It was amazing. This is easily my favorite Ali Hazelwood book now. I just read it in my most recent reading blog bookish stuff video if you want to see my reactions. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Scarlett's character. She is a diver who is getting over a major injury and trying to get through therapy and her undergrad degree in the hopes of applying to medical school. And her and Lucas, I think, just had a really special relationship, and it was so much fun reading this book. Next, we have what I have a feeling may be one of my favorite books of 2025, and that is First Time Caller by B.K. Borson. Adored this book. It is inspired off of Sleepless in Seattle, which is one of my favorite rom-coms. The premise of it is essentially Lucy and Aiden meet on Aiden's romantic hotline station, where Lucy's daughter calls in trying to get her mom a date and relationship advice. Lucy ends up agreeing to be a part of Heartstrings, which is Aiden's show, to try and find her perfect soulmate love match. Throughout it, the two of them slowly shift from a bit of enemies to lovers to really falling for each other. Yeah, it was so good. I loved Aiden as the male main character, but I also really loved Lucy as a single mom of a teenager who is trying to work through her own career, wanting to find a relationship that really matches her life. I think she's going to be relatable to a lot of people. Yeah, this also just released in February. All right, next I have a young adult romance rom-com to recommend, and that is Twelfth Knight by Alexine Farrell Fulmo, who is also Olivia Blake. That is her pen name, and this is her second YA rom-com romance. It is about Viola and Jack, who meet when Jack, who is a big football star, is injured. He tears his ACL and he suddenly is looking for something to occupy his time and take his mind off his injury. Viola is a big time gamer. She loves this specific game system called Twelfth Knight that she's obsessed with, and the two of them meet virtually on the game, and it is so much fun. It's so funny. I loved Viola's character. She's a really strong female main character, especially as a teenager, and I really loved the discussion of fandom in this. It was a little ode to fandom. Next is A Love Like the Sun by Reese Nielsen, and this is a beautiful contemporary romance book. It is about Lania and Isaac, and essentially the two of them have been best friends since they were very young, and Isaac basically blew up and became famous overnight with his company, and Lania is still back in her hometown trying to keep her business afloat, and they've kind of had some disconnect since he became very famous and he's always traveling, and he comes back to the hometown and wants to help her with her business, so they start fake dating. My favorite parts about this really just were the emotional connection between the two of them, especially childhood best friends to lovers. I feel like you don't get to see that very often in a romance book, and it's one of my favorite tropes. It was so emotional. I honestly cried multiple times throughout this book, and it had fantastic chronic illness and mental illness representation, so I love this one. Next, I have two books in a series. This is a hockey romance, sports romance series called the Undone series. So the first book is Unsteady, and the second book so far is Unloved. This is by Peyton Crin, and the first book, Unsteady, is about Reese and Sadie. Reese is a star hockey player who has been injured and is suffering from panic attacks and anxiety from his injury, and Sadie is the person that really comes in and helps him connect back with the sport and start healing. And then Unloved is about Freddie and Ro. Freddie is a hockey player who has always struggled with his learning disabilities, and Ro is his tutor who is trying to help him pass his college classes. Both of these are just easily my favorite sports romance series. I love Peyton's writing. It's so beautiful. There's so much great mental health representation, especially with the male main characters, and I highly recommend it. Next, we have another beloved interconnected series, the Addicted series, and the Calloway Sisters. And this is following 6 different main characters, 3 sisters, the Calloway Sisters, and then their 3 male main interest counterparts in their relationship. My personal favorite is Daisy and Ricki, but you definitely have to read the whole series to get to Daisy and Ricki and Connor and Rose's story. It is about these really rich characters who live in Philly rep, and they all struggle with different trauma and things that have happened in their past. A lot of them are really reluctant to get into new relationships, and Addicted to You, the first book in the Addicted series, is about Lily and Lo, who have been best friends and in love since they were kids and have grown up together. This is one of my favorite found family romance series ever. It started out a little slow for me, and once we got to like the 3rd book, I fell in love with this series, and I cannot wait to reread it all at some point. Next up is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a second chance romance, contemporary romance that is about Eva and Shane, who met for 1 week in their teenage years and had this whirlwind romance, falling deeply in love, and then something happened that led Shane to leave Eva, and as a result they haven't talked to each other in years, and they meet again at this literary event 20 years later. And so you kind of get to see the joint perspectives of them when they were younger and falling in love, and then them meeting again in their adulthood. And it is just so beautiful. It's so emotional. Eva is a really relatable character as someone who struggled a lot with her mental health when she was younger. She's a single mom now. She has a wonderful daughter, and they both are authors and aspiring authors. Yeah, it's a fantastic contemporary romance book. Next is another hockey romance, sports romance series, the Off the Ice series by Bao Cabra. The first book is Collide, which is about Summer and Aiden. And Summer is, I think, a PhD graduate student, and Aiden is the captain of the hockey team. The two of them, I think, meet when Summer has to do like a research project about the psychology of hockey, and it reminds me a lot of Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Similar tropes, and I really enjoyed it. And then my personal favorite is Spiral, which is the 2nd book in the series, which is about Ilias and Sage. Sage is a professional ballerina, and Ilias is another member of Aiden's hockey team. He's really struggling living up to his contract and being the top player that he was before coming to the pros, and I just loved it. I thought their chemistry was so good, and I really enjoyed their relationship and how they took care of each other. So another hockey romance series I would definitely recommend. Then we have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, and my personal favorite so far. It is about Teddy and Gus. This is an interconnected small town romance series, and Gus is the brother of the 2 other main characters in the first 2 books. Teddy is the best friend of Emmy, who is Gus's little sister. It is a best friend's brother trope. Yeah, I just really loved it. I love this series. I love the characters. It's a super fun, interconnected, small town romance series. It's very comforting, and I thought the relationship between Teddy and Gus was very hot, very steamy, but also I really enjoyed Teddy ends up being the nanny for Gus's child, really works her way into his heart. He's a very closed off character. Yeah, it was a really fun book to read. Okay, now I have a few books that I have not yet read but are on my immediate TBR. And to start, I have Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I want to read all of Kennedy's books this year. I've heard such incredible things. This is a marriage in crisis series that's going to have 3 books. The last book is coming out in May, I believe, and it is about Yasmin and Josiah, who are co-parenting. They're running a business, and their marriage is basically falling apart. They, I believe, had a divorce a few years ago, and this is them trying to come back together. It was the one piece of their life they couldn't fix, essentially. And I've heard that it's super emotional and just very heartbreaking, but also heartwarming, and I'm super excited to read this one. Next is a love song for Ricki Wilde by Tia Williams. As I said, I have read and loved 7 Days in June, and this is another contemporary romance historical fiction by Tia Williams that I've heard fantastic things about. My understanding is it's about Ricki Wilde, who is a artist who essentially moves to Harlem to revamp her life and try to get more into the arts and surround herself by the artistic community. When she arrives in Harlem, she meets a dark, mysterious stranger that she falls in love with, and I know that it's supposed to be based off of like modern Harlem and the Harlem Renaissance. Yeah, I've heard really good things. I've been wanting to read it for a while, and the paperback just came out, so I'm hoping to pick it up and read it soon. All right, last on my list is Summer in the City by Alex Astor. This was gifted to me by William Morrow, so thank you to them. This is Alex Astor's adult romance debut. She is the author of the Lovelark series, which was a young adult romantasy series that I really enjoyed. First of all, it's set in New York City, so I'm obsessed. This is about Elle and Parker, who were lovers once upon a time, then something happened, they became enemies, and then they meet up with each other again in New York City. Elle is trying to write a screenplay for a big movie. Parker is a big time businessman. My understanding is that they become neighbors when Elle moves to New York City. Elle decides that he could be the inspiration she needs to finish and write her next big screenplay, and so I think they start a fake relationship again. I have heard really good things about this, and I'm really interested because I loved the romance in the Lightlark series, so I'm going to be reading this honestly probably as my next read. All right, so that is the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed some of these romance book recommendations and getting a glimpse at a few books on my TBR for this winter springtime. Hopefully you have found maybe a few new romance books to check out that have just been released, or ones that have been out for a while that you may be interested in. Please let me know some of your romance book recommendations in the comments. I would love to know. I'm always looking for new authors. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to my channel for my next little video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in my next one. Bye.